2-year-old Mary Agnes Moroney disappeared in the bustling city of Chicago on a chilly day in November 1930. Her disappearance baffled authorities for 93 years, and her family members were left devastated. This case of decades lost child is confusing. Mary Agnes Moroney's enigmatic disappearance made international news for years. False leads and pointless discoveries failed for almost a century to locate the child and reunite her with her family. But over time, the puzzle's pieces started to line up. Hello beautiful people, and welcome back to Mystery Detective, where we explore the depths of cold and solved cases, strange mysteries, and spooky stories that will keep you up at night. In today's video, we'll talk about the lengthy search for Mary Agnes Moroney, a 2-year-old who mysteriously disappeared from her Chicago home in 1930 and was never heard from again. Mary Agnes Moroney's case remained unsolved despite numerous DNA tests, suspicious letters, sighting reports, and reported sightings until 2023, when a Californian woman came forward with the solution to the long-standing puzzle. Stay with us as we reveal the shocking details surrounding Mary's disappearance and the surprising turn of events that resulted in the resolution of her case. Mary Agnes Moroney was born to Catherine and Michael Moroney in Chicago, Illinois, on May 9, 1928. In the depths of poverty during the Great Depression, they were a family struggling to get by. Mary had a younger sister named Anastasia, who was only 11 months old at the time. Mary and her family lived in an apartment on the second floor above a supermarket at 5200 Wentworth Avenue. Michael Moroney distributed handbills to earn his meager weekly salary of only $15. The Moroneys were having a difficult time. In the midst of their financial struggles, one of Catherine Moroney's relatives became interested in the family story. This relative took the initiative to get in touch with a welfare organization, and as a result, an advertisement about their financial struggles was publicized. Shortly after, Edgar Gilpin, a self-described male nurse and philanthropist, responded to the advertisement on May 13, 1930, on a Wednesday night. He offers Michael help in the form of a suit and some shoes. Since the addresses of families in need were kept secret from the public, the family accepted the offer through the welfare organization. But due to a small error, a mysterious woman learned the Moroney family's address. They had no idea that this seemingly insignificant mistake would trigger a tragic chain of events that would alter their lives for good. On May 14, 1930, Catherine Moroney, who was 17 years old at the time, was at home by herself with Mary Agnes and Anastasia. She heard a knock at the door as she was mopping the floor. When she goes to answer the door, a nicely dressed woman who identified herself as Mrs. Henderson, and claimed to be a representative of the social worker who had seen the Moroney family's advertisement for assistance, was standing at the doorstep. She had just brought inside some groceries she had bought from the downstairs grocery store for $2.55. Mary Agnes, who was typically reserved, quickly warmed up to the woman as Catherine described their family's hardship to her. The woman appeared friendly and eager to assist while listening intently. She said her aging husband had passed away, leaving her with a sizable fortune. A child like Mary Agnes was something else she mentioned wanting. She then requested that Mary Agnes be temporarily taken to California with her while assuring Catherine that the young girl would be as chubby as a butterball. Catherine struggled to overcome her unease. She politely turned down the woman's sudden offer, and the woman seemed to have accepted the mother's decision. The woman soon left and assured Catherine she would be back the following day. Catherine asked for her name, and the woman reluctantly identified herself as Julia Otis. Julia gave Catherine $2 and 2 books before she left as a sign of support. The next day on May 14, 1930, even though it was raining, Julia Otis went back to the Moroney's house. She brought fresh baby clothes this time for Catherine, who was at the time expecting her third child. Later it was found that Julia had bought these clothes from a department store with a brand new $50 bill. She offered to drive Mary Agnes to a close-by shop so she could buy new clothes and shoes, and claimed to have found her father a better job. Catherine reluctantly agreed to let Mary Agnes go with her because she was appreciative of the woman's generosity and thought of her as a blessing. Julia Otis took little Mary away and left in spite of her sobs and tantrums. The two, however, disappeared without a trace. Catherine and Michael turned to the police for assistance as they searched desperately for their beloved daughter. They searched for traces, but none were discovered. On the same evening, an elderly man in shabby clothing who claimed to be a welfare worker showed up at the Moroney home. Catherine reported him to the police because she was uncomfortable with his presence. The man tried to stop her from making the call through to the police, but failed, and eventually ran away. He was never identified or found. Julia Otis was described by Catherine as a pleasant and attractive woman, around the age of 22, standing at around 5 feet 2 inches tall, and weighing 125 pounds. She spoke with a refined voice and had visible front teeth. Julia was dressed in a gray suit, a gray lace hat, a pearl necklace, and a jeweled wristwatch when they last saw each other. At around 8 p.m. the following day, on May 16, a letter from Julia Otis arrived at the Moroney residence. The letter was written on letterhead, and the postmark on it showed that it was delivered at 4:30 p.m. It came with a $5 bill and was delivered via special delivery. The letter read, "Please don't be alarmed. I have taken your little girl to California with me. I have hired a special nurse to care for her. We'll be back in 2 months. By that time, you will be on your feet again and will be able to care for her. She didn't even cry a bit. She is outfitted like a princess. In the meantime, I'll help all I can to get you on your feet. Don't worry about anything else. When you get this letter, we'll be on our way already. As ever, Julia Otis." The authorities examined the letter and found that there were deliberate attempts to make the writing appear illiterate. Could the letter's author have been hiding their true educational background on purpose? As word of the letter spread, witnesses soon came forward with stories of a woman who resembled Julia's description. A young girl who resembled Mary Agnes and the woman were spotted together at a store. A witness saw the woman dictating a letter to a store employee. The Moroneys got a second letter from someone named Alice Henderson 2 weeks later. She claimed to be Julia Otis's cousin. Alice stated in her letter that Julia had lost both her husband and her child the year before, and so, she had been craving love since her tragic loss. Alice expressed her wish for Julia to change her mind and give Mary Agnes back. She then ceased all correspondence with the family. Authorities eventually found that both letters had identical handwriting. 4 days after Mary Agnes was kidnapped, on May 19, Catherine Moroney took matters into her own hands and asked a judge for a warrant, accusing Julia Otis of abducting her first fruit. Both the public and law enforcement were puzzled by this mysterious woman's abduction of Mary Agnes Moroney. In an effort to find any indication of the two boarding a train, the police searched all of Chicago's railroad stations. However, it appeared as though the two had disappeared with no single trace. A girl fitting Mary Agnes' description was spotted in Rockford, Illinois, on July 23, 1931. A 3-year-old white girl who resembled Mary Agnes in terms of tan skin, blonde hair, and blue eyes was seen in a cart being pushed by an elderly Native American woman named Martha Thompson. When the Moroneys were notified and showed up to identify the girl, Martha claimed that the girl had been abandoned by her mother, whose name was Florence Fuller, and that she was on her way to join a circus with the child. The young girl, according to Catherine, was not Mary Agnes. Catherine gave the girl a thorough examination. She made sure she wasn't her daughter by inspecting her teeth and body. Both parents were inconsolable when it dawned on them that the girl wasn't Mary Agnes. One thing that set Mary Agnes apart from the girl from Rockford was the red mark on her arm. The case of Mary Agnes's disappearance eventually became cold because the investigation yielded no meaningful leads. In the coming years, the Moroney family welcomed another child whom they named Catherine into the world. They then had the good fortune to welcome 5 more boys named Michael Jr., Patrick, George, Harold, and William. When other kids went missing, the media frequently ran stories about Mary Agnes, keeping her name in the public eye. When Chicago Daily News reporter Eden Wright came across a picture of the Moroney family, he noticed something important: all of the family members looked alike, which gave him the idea for a story. In an effort to get someone to recognize Mary Agnes, the Chicago Daily News worked with the Californian newspaper to publish photos of the Moroney family. Soon enough, a Californian man by the name of Everett McClellan came forward in 1952. The men claimed that Anastasia, one of Mary Agnes' sisters, looked so much like his wife that it might have been her picture. The woman, Mary McClellan, was 24 years old and had been adopted in 1930 by Charles and Nora Beck. The teeth, blood type, skull type, fingerprints, and handprints of Mary McClellan appeared to be identical to those of Mary Agnes. However, Mary McClellan lacked 2 things Mary Agnes had. Mary Agnes was born a year later than McClellan, and McClellan did not have Mary Agnes' distinctive hernia scar from a surgical procedure. The newspaper arranged a meeting between Mary McClellan and Catherine on September 4, 1952, but much to everyone's dismay, Catherine Moroney insisted that Mary McClellan was not her lost daughter. Regardless, the women developed a close bond over time. Ultimately, a DNA test carried out in 2008 after Mary McClellan's demise established that she was not Mary Agnes. Mary Agnes' parents, Catherine and Michael, were profoundly affected by the tragic disappearance of their daughter. Michael passed away in 1957 at the age of 58, leaving behind an extraordinary amount of pain brought on by the loss of his dearly loved daughter. Depression plagued Catherine for years as she was consumed by the pain of her daughter's disappearance. She was only 49 years old when she died in 1962, after she had endured her loss all the way to the end. For close to a century, Mary Agnes' case remained a mystery. When Cook County Sheriff's Detective, Jose Rodriguez, started looking into Mary Agnes's disappearance in 2022 and contacted Terry Arnold, the daughter of a woman he thought was the long-lost Mary Agnes Moroney, the case took a great turn. Detective Rodriguez thought Mary Agnes might actually be Terry's mother based on DNA evidence. When the detective first explained his hypothesis, that Jeanette Burchard might actually be Mary Agnes Moroney, to Terry Arnold, Terry was doubtful and didn't buy it. She emphasized the absence of Mary Agnes' birthmark and other distinguishing features in her mother. But Terry agreed to take a commercial DNA test in order to disprove the theory and offer concrete proof. On October 28, 2022, the test results were received, and they produced a startling finding. Her genetic makeup, in contrast to Terry's Polish heritage, predominantly revealed Irish ancestry, which was a notable similarity with the Moroney family. The DNA test also established Terry Arnold's relationship to the Moroney family's surviving members as first-line cousins. This coincidental relationship strengthened the notion that Terry's mother was Mary Agnes Moroney. Who was she, though? Her family had been informed that Jeanette Burchard was born on April 14, 1928. She was raised by Jeanette Soleric Darris Anderson and her stepfather, Frank Darris. Detective Rodriguez did not find any obvious abnormalities in Burchard's family during his investigation. However, Terry provided a crucial piece of information. Frank Darris, Terry's step-grandfather, once told Jeanette Burchard that the woman who raised her wasn't her biological mother. Terry also claimed that her mother attempted to find out more about her true ancestry by contacting her Chicago-based cousins, but they claimed to be unaware of the situation. However, it was later discovered that before getting married to Frank Darris, the woman who raised Jeanette had a brief relationship with a man by the name of John Fahey. Fahey and the woman, along with Jeanette Burchard, were listed as residing in the same Chicago home in the 1930 census. After getting married to Darris, the family moved to Virginia in the early 1930s. Later, during World War II, they moved to Florida. Jeanette Burchard wed Edward Jennings in the 1940s, and the two of them had two children named Barbara Joan Jennings and Edward Clifton Jennings, Jr. After starting her career as a nurse, Jeanette gave birth to Terry Arnold, her third child, in 1957. A few decades later, she wed Earl Burchard a second time. The Miami Dolphins were Jeanette's favorite team, and she supported them from the time they were founded in 1966 throughout her entire life. Jeanette was a nurse, but she also had a great love for animals, especially dogs and cats. She also loved opera, with Madame Butterfly being a particular favorite. According to Terry, the last time her mother visited Chicago was probably between 1989 and 1995, possibly for a funeral. She later died in Florida in 2003, and her remains were buried alongside her pets. A year later, her son, Edward Clifton Jennings Jr. died. Her daughter, Barbara Joan Jennings, soon passed away in 2006 too. Terry Arnold is, however, the only surviving child of Jeanette Burchard, and she is certain that Mary Agnes Moroney is indeed her mother, whom she knows as Jeanette Burchard. In an interview, Terry admitted that she didn't know anything about the name, Julia Otis, or how her grandmother ended up raising her mother, Jeanette Burchard. Terry is still oblivious to the circumstances surrounding this mystery. However, she acknowledged that Mary Agnes' parents never received closure or knew the truth about what really happened to their daughter and expressed sympathy and sadness for them. Terry assured the Moroney family that Jeanette Burchard, or Mary Agnes as Terry knew her, was dearly loved despite the unanswered questions. Mary Agnes Moroney was the subject of a decades-long, relentless search in 1930. The horrific chapter that has plagued the Moroney family's generations for almost a century has finally come to an end as of this year 2023. But there was still one unanswered question: who was Julia Otis, and what motivated her to kidnap young Mary Agnes from her loving family? We will never be able to know some of these responses. Thank you, friends, for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon for more mystery cases. Until next time, stay safe and alert for the next mystery to be unraveled.